Hi, welcome to Bookwood. It's cold. Let's go inside. Come in.
Hi, I'm glad you chose to spend some time with me. We have been visiting each other for a while now, and in all that time I told you that I use the library more than I buy books. That this has as a consequence that I am not a mood reader. I have to make my TBR. So I thought it would be interesting for you if I explain to you how we use our library and how this impacts my reading and also a little bit my life. We have a very large family. We are 7 of us, and all 7 of us are readers in our own way. So this means that each month there are a huge amount of books going through our house. We do have a special bookcase that is dedicated to the library books. I will show this to you in a little clip right now. So this is the bookcase my husband built to hold our library books. We have divided it in several sections, and the first one, all on the top, is the manga section, which holds the whole bunch of manga my kids consume, and sometimes I consume. And we put them all up there because often they are not suited for the smaller children, and so they are out of their range. I also use this shelf to put in my TBR. The next shelf mostly holds the books that I am reading, the books that my daughter is reading, and slowly, so I will just say Tilia, the books that Tilia is reading. Tilia is 15, she reads young adult, she reads a lot of books that I read too. And this is our shelf, and very slowly Jorim is going up to this shelf. He's 13. He still mostly reads middle grade, but he starts reading with us, and he's in between those two shelves. This shelf is the middle grade shelf. It holds books that Niklaus can read. It slowly starts to hold books that Naoki can read. So Niklaus is 9, and up until now he has had a big trouble with reading. That is that big books scare him off, but the more smaller books have intrigues that are not complicated enough anymore for him. And so he's in a phase where he reads less, and I'm very happy he has started to read the first book of the Manoir of Castle Cat series. We'll see if he finishes it though. So this shelf mostly holds books that my 2 younger sons can read. So Naoki is 7, and he has trouble learning to read. But then he likes to have some of these non-fiction books that he can read 1 page or 1 paragraph from and move on to something else to do because it costs him a lot of difficulty. Then this bottom shelf, which is also quite high, is made for Marion's albums. So we read, we call this an album. I think in English it's called a picture book. So we read at least one of these every night, almost all the time if she's not too tired. And you can see that they are all upside down. That's because she does take them around the house, and so she puts them back in any way she can. We made this library after that. We found out that it was a long search for all the books that my kids wanted and kept in their rooms. So sometimes book got under mattresses and stuff like that, and I spent lots of time looking for them. So we made this bookcase. My husband made this bookcase that still needed to be painted, that contains all the books, and the rule in the house is you can read books from this case, but you have to take one and put it back before taking another one. It is working quite well, so I'm very happy about that. So this makes that I do not buy books. If I had to buy all the books we are reading all together, then unfortunately I think we would have very soon a lack of storage in our house that is not huge. We do buy books. We especially buy the books in nice editions if we want to keep them, if we loved reading them, or from our favorite authors and things like that. But 99% of what we read comes from the library. So our library system is very interesting. We have our local library from our little town, and we will call it A. That is in fact an outpost of the bigger library that we will call B, because I don't want to tell you where I live for some privacy reasons. And the library B not only has our little outpost A, but also two others, C and D. All this together creates our local library. And this local library is part of a network of libraries from our province that I want to tell you. It's the province of Liège in Wallonia, Belgium. And we so have access not only to the books of our local outpost, we have easy access to books of all the, let's say, the posts of our library B, but we also have access to all the books in the network. So when I want a book that my library doesn't have, not in B, not in any of the outposts, then this book can be rented, borrowed from any library in the network. And there is a special system that drives books around, and that comes to our main point. So B comes there, the little van comes twice a week. So when I want to read for a readathon, and I need a book that comes from farther away, I need to roughly ask this book 2 weeks before I want to read it. That's one part of our library system. During COVID, our library created what's still called the bibliodrive. The bibliodrive is a system in which I can contact the library by phone, by email, and now that we are all okay again, also I just can go to ask for books. And I can ask for specific books, for just a thriller, or even like a book like this book. And our librarian will go look for that, and we will fix an appointment to pick up the books. I really love that system, and I still use it. Every around 15th of the month, I send an email with all the books that our family would like to borrow for the next month. And then I go pick this book up around the 1st of the month, maybe a little bit later, maybe a bit earlier. It depends on how it falls in my agenda. And this works very well for our family. The first reason is we already run around, like we say, like chickens without a head, between the 3 different schools of the kids, the different extra activities they do, health appointments, and so not having to go in between the opening hours to the library is easy. I just know that day I go, I pick up, I go home. It does not take me hours to go. If I would go with everybody to the library, that would be a first problem. It would be like the time that every kid has find the books he wants. We are 3 hours further. And my oldest will go and she will look especially for books. She's also a readathon reader. But my youngest, will go just to the children's storybooks, pick out a stack, and then we'll go play around the library. That leaves us with at least 3 of my kids being extremely loud. They all have some neuroatypicalness, and often the library becomes a playground. And I feel very ashamed of that. So I do take them to the library for events, or sometimes I go with just 1 or 2 of them, but I never go with all 5 together. So having the bibliodrive makes it very easy to manage that. Also, for my youngest children, it is easy to have just suggestions from the librarian. We just ask for 10 books, 10 picture books to read as a family or with the younger kids at night for bedtime most of the time. So we also have a bigger variety in these books. If I let my kids choose, basically every month there is 1 or 2 or 3 books that I have already read. And they would be less diverse in their reading. We have discovered the best books we have read, we have gotten through librarian suggestions. So this is the reason for the bibliodrive system. Also, a reason why I use this system is we live in a small village. And so we have a smaller library. And often the books that I'm looking for, the, let's say, hyped books from YouTube, they are in other libraries, bigger libraries. And so most of the books I read come from the bigger network, and less books come from the very local library. So this is why I use the library, and this is how our library works. So when I have to choose the books I'm going to read, I use prompts. Why do I use readathons? I could just go to the library, pick out a bunch of books and read those. When I discovered BookTube a few years ago, and I discovered it in English, which is maybe strange since I live in a French-speaking area, I discovered a whole bunch of books I never heard about, and I started watching wrap-ups, vlogs, TBRs, videos on books, and so I wanted to read some of those books. Then I got a problem because I wanted to read way more books than I could read, and I started to keep a list of those books. I call this my want to read list. Since I don't own them, they are not to be read. I want to read them at some point. And since if I want to read all these books, and for now there are, I think 277 books on this list, excluding sequels of series I'm reading. And so when I have to make up my list for the library, I'm always like, okay, which one shall I pick? And that's when I discovered readathons, that's when I discovered reading challenges, and I thought these were the most fantastic way to decide which books I want to read. So books that I pick for prompts are almost always books from or series I am currently reading and I want to finish, or books that are on that list. It happens that I have a prompt that does not fit any of these books, and then often then I'll go look for another book and I will discover something that might be out of my comfort zone. I mostly use challenges for that, since and especially the 52 book club yearly challenge, since this challenge really holds prompts that take me out of this comfort zone. So let's start building a TBR. First thing I do before making my TBR is discovering the prompts of the readathon that I'm taking part in. This month I am taking part in the Magical Readathon by Book Roast. This is also called Orilium, and it's my favorite readathon all times. It's the first one I participated in. Let's have a look at the announcement video. Once we know the prompts, the next step is to match some books to them. So I have gone ahead a little bit and I have already printed out the syllabus for this semester, which is the list of prompts. Everything for this readathon is stored in AD Drive, so that's where you can find this list. And my character, Olga, switches career studies this year. We go from mind mender to herbalist and beast master, since only one of those is a little bit less books than I would read in a month, but they both go into her story. So the first thing I did was look up which of these prompts actually are for me, and I will be reading 2 times for alchemy, 2 times for restoration, once for elemental studies and one from animal studies. This means that I will have to read 2 books for which the title is all capitals. I will have to read 2 books that are within the 4 or 4+ star average rating range. Somewhere for me that will be Goodreads, and I will have to read 1 book that I steal from another TBR, and I will need to read 1 book with fruit on the cover. So the first place I go to look if there is a book that can suit one of these prompts is my series tracker list, which is this one in my reading journal, and also on my audiobooks on my Audible, because many of my series are there, and easy peasy, there is already a book cover. So I cheated a little bit, and I've already done that. we have made a spread that I think will be a spread that will be useful to me. I will let you know in my next journal setup if that's the case. So now it is time to match a book with each of these prompts. The first thing that I have done, because I did this off camera because it is a little bit too much time to film it all, is to fill in the books that are books that I have already committed to reading. So one of them is for the Fit Salon, and I am lucky. In April I have no book to read for the Fit Salon since I am ahead. And then there is the book for my reread challenge, which will be Les Ancêtres d'Avalon, or The Ancestors of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, finished by Diana L. Paxon. Then is the book for the Mooney Book Club, and I am not sure there will be a book club this month since we have the Orilium Readathon going on, but I made a space for it anyway. So the next thing I take in account is the number of pages a book has, or the time of listening that it has, because I know that I will read around 2,500 pages and that I will listen around 60 hours of audiobook in a month. So it is an important statistic to me, one that I have distilled out of my reading stats of 2024. So I have divided this space, like we saw, in two sides. One side with the more year-long challenges or readathons, and then one for the actual, for the month. And this is also the order in which I have looked for the prompts. So I have a priority in where I look for a book to fulfill a prompt. And one of the first priorities will be books that are left over from the library. It may happen that I do not finish my TBR, or that my daughter has a book on her TBR that also is on my want-to-read list, and that I might try to plan in for the upcoming month, so that we just extend or prolong the loan that we have for it, so that I don't have to put it on hold again for me. But it may also be like it happened this month, that a book that was on a TBR, that was on hold, that didn't come in time, like this Profession astronaute by Tomas Marlier et Pierre-François Mouriaux. And then when it comes in, well, I have to squeeze it in, or in the month that it arrives, or I need to again extend my loan time and put it in my next TBR. So I have one over, and I was able to use it in one of the prompts. Another priority list is my Audible account. So I listen to some longer series on there, like La Guilde des Ombres by Anna Triss, like Le Secret du Faucon that we started in February, like Divine Darkness by Anna Triss that I started in February. And when I have a series on Audible that is completely finished, or in which there are already more books, I try to listen to one each month, so that I still have a variety in what I listen to, but it is not staying too long on my active series list. And so for April I have the last book in La Guilde des Ombres, which is La Guerre, Céleste Partie 2 by Anna Triss, that I would like to listen to, and I would like to squeeze in at least one volume of Le Secret du Faucon. So all the books are called Le Secret du Faucon. It's by AD Martel, and it's 1, 2, 3. So it doesn't matter if it's the second book or the third book. I have found a prompt where both fit in. And I would like to fit in a Divine Darkness book by Anna Triss, so I hope to still finish the second one in March, and then that will be the third book. I also scrolled through it to see if some of the included books that I added to my library are not on the point of disappearing, and for April there was one, and it is La Mariée de Corail. I need to look up the author, I don't know it by heart, it will be somewhere, which is from a Canadian author from Quebec, so it is in French, and it is the second book in a series that I didn't know was a series. I listened to the first one, and I discovered quite recently that there are more books in this series, because the first one wasn't marked as part of a series. And the second book is disappearing in the very beginning of April, so that will be the very first book I listen to. And so I wanted to squeeze this book into my TBR as well. So after checking books that are still here from the library, if there are any books that are disappearing in Audible, if there are any series that I absolutely want to continue, that I already have, I go see in my physical books. And again, I start with my series tracker that's in here to see if there is any series I can continue, so that I advance in there. I also found a book for that over there. And after that, I go have a look in my Goodreads want to read list. Most of the time I will try to make a balance between translated books and untranslated books, because when I started reading, most of what I read was translated, and I have noticed that slowly are coming in more French authors, which I didn't expect, to be honest. And so then I go look in there, and mostly I will try to avoid first books in a series, and I will try to put in more books that I have to let come from another library in the network, so that I keep the ones that are local for readathons like the Amazing Readathon, where prompts are not predictable before. So let's go over the books that I have picked out. So like I told you, I have picked out Le Profession Astronaute, which has a title all in capitals, and that could go into an alchemy prompt, of which I have two. After that, I went to do a little tour in my Audible account, and so like I told you, I have La Mariée de Corail, which didn't fit any of the prompts, but no worries. One of the prompts for animal studies, it is still a book from another TBR. It's not really a prompt for me, since I try to read the books I have in my priority list, and it's hard to find a TBR that has exactly the same books in it. So I have some scrolls. They are included in the Orilium play, or in the Orilium lore, scrolls that allow me to change a prompt. And so I switched to the prompt of the Demonology, which is a book with a missing person in it, which does fit pour La Mariée de Corail. So I put that book in there, which is 11 hours and 22 minutes of listening time. In the audiobooks, I also had La Guerre, céleste, partie 2, de la Guilde des Ombres by Anna Triss, which is a title all in capitals, which fits my second alchemy prompt. And the Le Secret du Faucon, if it's book 2 or book 3, doesn't matter. They both have an over 4-star rating on Goodreads, so I can read or listen to any of those. This is 32 hours and 25 minutes for La Guilde des Ombres, and 9 hours and 28 minutes for the second book of Le Secret du Faucon. I took that one, not for sure. So once I have done that, it was time to go through the other prompts and see what books I could find for that. For fruit on the cover, I found out that acorns are a type of fruit, and they are on Emily Wilde's map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett. And it happens that my daughter has this book on hold and that it should arrive anytime soon. So I decided to read this book, since it is also on my series tracker. So I will have a priority since it's from the library, it's in the house, and I have a priority since it's on my series tracker. So for mental studies, I will be reading that. Then we are left with one other restoration prompt, which was the 4-star or more average rating. And for that, I went to the books that I could put on hold, and I picked out La Librairie de Téhéran, or the stationery Shopkeeper by Marjan Kamali, which is a book that I'm very interested in since I have a friend living in Iran. Editing me popping in. When I was setting up my reading journal a little bit later, I noticed I forgot a prompt. I also have a prompt for the class of lore. This prompt is to read a book with a musical term in the title. For this book I have picked out Cocaine et Tralala by Kerry Greenwood. It is the first book in the Miss Fisher series. I forgot to add this prompt since unfortunately when I printed out the different callings from the cheat drive, my printer omitted to print the last line that holded this prompt for me. And that left me with two other prompts open, the one for my adventures in Eldia, which gave me the prompt title with the word river in it. So going through all my books on my Goodreads list, I found one, and that is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, which is the first in a series. So we are doing quite well. This book is in English, it isn't translated in French, so I will read it on my e-reader. And then for Les Étapes Indiennes, the prompt is novel, and I think we mean more like just general fiction because there is prompts like thriller or mystery. And for that I have chosen the namesake, I think in French is Un nom pour un autre by Jhumpa Lahiri. And that's also a book that I have to put on hold in the library. So with that, all my prompts are filled in, and I think we have a nice balance between translated and non-translated works. I think we have a nice balance between series and standalones. So I'll invite you to come and watch my April wrap-up. Strange thing to say even when we are still March, to see if I have read all these books and what I thought about them. I hope that this first part of this video was interesting for you. We talked about how my library works, why I use the library, and how I use the library. I showed you where we keep all these library books that come in, and I showed you how I make my to-be-read list. In the next part of this video, we will meet up somewhere around the 1st of April to go to the library, and I'll show you how I keep track of all the books we have in the house. It's the 1st of April, and it is time to have the second step in our library tradition, and that is preparing to go and to bring back all the books that we have as a loan for the month of March. So to do that, I always go back to the list that I made of all the books that came in, so I'm sure we do not forget any of them. And that's what we'll be doing now. So it happens that we didn't finish all the books for some reason. Like my daughter didn't get to Skeleton Creek. The second book, it's called Engrenage en français, in French, en français in French. And so then we just asked the library to prolong it. I can do that on the website, so I will take care of that after I have tucked all the books in the bags. And this is the moment that I get confused, because there is books that we prolonged last time that that I didn't write down in my bullet journal. That's because I wrote them all down in front of the library waiting for my son. So I will just add them and check if we didn't forget anything on the website. So the next thing I do is visiting my library's website, on which we can ask to keep books longer, and I always check that the books that I marked off are effectively all the books that we had. This will also give me a little sneak peek of the books for my reservations that already came in. This is a long thing to do since the website is extremely slow. So sometimes I cannot have a book for an extra time. That's because every time we have books coming in, we prolong all the books, and then I need to ask the librarian to do so. So I'll put that in my bullet journal. With this done, we're ready to leave. we have noted down all the books that came into the house, and this month some of the books we asked for weren't ready at the library when I arrived. So there is 2 books for me that are still on hold and that should come in during the month. And there are also some manga, at least for one of my sons. So I will not include every time that I go back to get for some books. So what happens if books that are on hold come in, we receive an email, and these books stay for about 2 weeks at the library. So that's the time that I have to go get them. I try to go at maximum once a week. I add them on the list and I bring them back, normally together with all the other books. So the idea is that I keep the monthly stuff together. So whilst I took note of these books, it's something that I often do in a hurry because the kids are excited and they want their books. I had the kids bring all the books upstairs. And there is only one more thing that I do each month, and that is add all the books that I plan to read on my story graph. So if you want to see what I plan to read, it is always there. Even if I keep a list of read books on Goodreads, the detailed information is on story graph. Last year I used to go in there every day and add in, like every morning, and I went to put in the number of pages or hours listened the day before. I have stopped doing that because I felt like obliged to read. I felt very bad if I didn't read one day, and reading must stay fun, not some type of obligation. And so I said to myself that this year, sometimes I do put in this information, but most of the time I just put in, I read it and I have finished it. So let's add all the books for my TBR to my story graph. Our dog that you see in the intro of my videos is a mixed breed Yushki Belgian Malinois Shepherd. And he has a personality that is quite dramatic, theatrical. And when I'm working upstairs, he is in his bench downstairs for the simple fact that he doesn't want to come up. And when I leave him alone downstairs, he destroys shoes, sofas, clothes, toys, bins, everything that he can grab, he just destroys. And recently he added to that also, he is marking his territory throughout the whole house. So when I'm upstairs filming and you hear him howl like that, he's just being a drama queen. He will get out of his bench as soon as I'm finished. I finished adding all the books to my story graph, and that brings us to the end of this video. I hope that it was clear how I make a TBR and why, and how my library works, and how I manage to have a lot of books of the library in my house at once, even if this month we do not have that much of them. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And I am also very curious to know if you use your library and how your library works. You can leave those informations if you want to talk about them, of course, in the comments also. See you soon!